Hey friends, I'm your host, Dr. Elizabeth Ssemanda, medical intuitive healer and life coach, and you're listening to Stepping into Soul Power podcast, the podcast for people who understand that we are more than just our physical bodies. So here we explore medical intuition and healing, help you identify your blocks, and give you strategies to empower the soul in you. Okay, friends, today, we got a twofer. We got a twofer. We're gonna give you like a little smidge of a medical intuitive read, and then transition to an interview with Dr. Elizabeth Davidson. Dr. Elizabeth Davidson, she is a holistic doctor, functional bloodwork specialist, clairvoyant, plant medicine expert, entrepreneur, author, forager, skier, friends. She likes some slopes. She likes she likes the slopes, and single mom, and so for a lot of us, like our health, like just navigating our health can be like a puzzle. And friends, she combines like science and intuition, helps you put the puzzle together, and just to bring so you can find resolution with your chronic disease, autoimmune disorders, and just helping people live their best lives. So Dr. Elizabeth Davidson, welcome to the show. Would you like to say a couple words before we start?
Sure. Thanks for that amazing introduction. And I'm so excited to be here. I love the idea of what you're doing here. And I also love that part of the twofer is that people get two Doctors Elizabeth today, because that's really fun.
On multiple levels, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so I guess we'll start with the reading, and so I always like to ask for permission. Do I have permission to do the reading?
Yes, please.
Okay, awesome. And so I'm going to connect with you on a soul to soul level for just the most perfect, favorable reading to happen. And so the question I'm going to ask is like just one of the most pressing issues that you, Dr. Elizabeth Davidson, might have regarding your career. And I tend to, like you, I tend to be more clairvoyant, and I get visions and when so think about what it means to you. It really doesn't matter what I think. I'll give you like what I sense, but really it's however you interpret what I see. So when I ask this question, so the first thing I see is there's an image. The image of it's almost like there's a hamster in a hamster wheel, and the hamster is running. And the interesting thing about this is that it's not in a cage per se. It's not in a cage. It's running in the wheel outside in the snow. And as the hamster runs in this wheel, like there's like it's almost like it's creating a snowball. If you can imagine, like a snowball develops around it. And the sense that I'm getting is like there is just like maybe a smidge of a tendency to overthink. It's almost, but it's interesting because it's a bit like a double-edged sword so the good thing is like you're prepared, right? Like you're prepared, but the flip side is you're using a lot of, you may be using a lot of energy that you could be using for other things. And the sense that I'm getting is that this started in, I want to say middle school. Like it's almost as if like around that time you're like outspoken, and there may have been just a few instances where like your ideas may have been taken out of context, and you're like, okay, well, like to solve this problem, you're going to think things thoroughly before moving forward, but you may have taken it bit over. And I'm just being guided to your throat area, and the sense that I'm getting, yeah, it's just like sometimes, like it's like you know what you want to say, but it may not necessarily come out the way that you want. And then even because this may have been going on for several years, there is like a physical manifestation. Like at times you may have discomfort or irritation around your throat, and then even the sense that I'm getting is like even your thyroid. Thyroid. So the solution would be just like speaking your truth with no regrets. And the beautiful thing is that there, like you have so many skills, great things about you. Like it's not even just you're smart, yes, you're diligent, yes, but you also have a good, like you have a good sense of humor. It's like those things with with your perseverance that are going to help kind of help move whatever needs to be moved as far as your career is concerned. I don't know if any of that resonated, like your thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what that meant for me is, I do a lot of work to promote myself and put myself out there and all of that. And a lot of it, I feel like doesn't get seen, doesn't get like the results that I really want, because, there's so many people that need my help. And I feel kind of invisible sometimes. So there was that part. And I definitely do get a lot of irritation around my throat. Like since I was a little kid, really, I had sore throats a lot. And then through grad school, it like kind of reemerged and got worse. And of course that was now like close to 20 years ago, and it's still there. So, and that's a place that I've worked a lot, is just, self-expression. I feel like, especially as kids, people tend to get shut down in that area a lot. And I'm one of those for sure.
Yes,
And
yes.
so working on that still, and just clarity of communication and all of that sort of thing. So yes, I mean, what you intuit there is certainly apropos of my life and what it looks like. And the thyroid piece, that was interesting too.
I see. Yeah, yeah. We can talk more about talk more about that. But I want to give the audience a chance to get a to hear your perspective, and to actually, we want to hear your story in your words. So if you could tell us, like there's so many, like you've done so much, like author, holistic, doctor, like clairvoyant. I mean, I want to hear about the plant medicine expert. And you're a mom too, which is one of the like, I'll be honest with you, it like balancing all of those things like is tough. So like just tell us, like if you could tell us about your journey, your story as a healer.
Sure. Well, it all started with working to heal myself. So I was a really sick kid. I had migraines starting at age 4, joint pain starting at age 7. I had bronchitis twice a year. I had a lot of antibiotics for that. So I wound up with lots of gut and skin issues. And by the time I was 11, like just everything hurt. Whenever I ate, I just expected pain, and my skin was a mess. And all of the symptoms just continued. Fibromyalgia diagnosis in my 20s, because they don't really diagnose that when you're 7, but it was that kind of thing. And of course, with all of that chronic illness comes lots of brain fog and and just a real social challenge too, like putting myself out there, speaking my truth and all of that. Like I didn't feel good enough to really be seen in that way. So it was a lot of just kind of hiding
Mm.
myself too. But it's also spurred me on this path. So when I was 10, I started refusing to take the medications that I was prescribed because they made me feel worse. And I knew that.
Yes.
And that really shifted my thinking from fixing a symptom to building my health from the inside. And that's when I started looking at diet and at plant medicine. So I've been studying plant medicine for most of my life. And nutrition. Those were the
Wow.
first two things that I really put into place to start making shifts in my health. And I didn't get a lot of results, honestly, for
Can
a
we
long
ask a
time.
question?
Yeah.
For I want you to keep going, but I just want to for some
Yeah.
of because some of our listeners may not know what we mean, like when we say plant medicine, like how are you defining that?
Well, plants are where every medication originated. So most medications are made in labs now, yeah, but they all originated from
Yes.
plants. So all the original medications are plants, and plants are, in my opinion, more medicinal than nutritional. And medicines, are tricky
Mm.
because there's always some level of toxicity to a medication, and that's what I mean when I say plants are more medicinal than
Yes.
nutritional, because plants always have toxicity too, because they have lots of defense chemicals, so that they can survive and continue to photosynthesize and all of that. But a lot of that can be used in a medicinal way. And so the first thing that I started working with as far as plant medicine goes was like medicinal herbs. And those are like, they're in our gardens, they're in our yards, they're everywhere. So it's really fun to have that perspective.
Yes.
Just even if you just learn a few, like I live in Vermont, and there's red clover everywhere. It's actually the Vermont state flower, even though it's invasive. But it is a medicinal plant, and it's a blood
Yes.
builder and kind of a tonifier of the whole system. And so I harvest lots of red clover and make tea with that all winter. And
Oh,
so
nice.
I love the
Oh,
connection.
that's awesome.
Like, I feel like you can be really empowered with plant medicine, even just knowing a couple of plants that are in your yard. And if you have a yard, but
Yes.
plants are everywhere,
Yes.
and and I've gotten more specific with it. Like now, for more concentrated plant medicine, I really like to use essential oils, because they take all the medicinal pieces and put it in a convenient little bottle so that you can just have it on hand. And one thing to think about,
Yes.
like for anyone who uses herbs or spices in their cooking, like that piece that gives you the
Mm-hmm.
flavor is also where the medicinal pieces are located. And a lot of like traditional cultural
Ooh.
things, like Indian food, maybe you think of, the turmeric and the cardamom and the ginger and all of that. Those all have so many medicinal uses, and
Yes.
lots of those are like anti-inflammatory, but also to help with digestion. And you find it in any sort of, cuisine. There are
Yes.
traditional herbs and spices that are used, and if you dive a little deeper into that, they have so much medicinal value. And so I love that we can integrate medicine into just our daily food. And um, and it's all coming from the plants. And lots of those plant compounds can be synthesized in labs. And if you take prescriptions, they're synthesized plant compounds all put together and made in a lab. I prefer the plant version because you get like so much more magic from it, because it's growing in the earth, and it's created, from just plants, not in labs.
I I I absolutely resonate with that. Yes. Yes, it hasn't been manipulated. It's in its more natural state, and I appreciate that statement. Um yeah, I wonder, I interrupted you, but I wanted to know if you could continue with your journey,
Yeah.
as you,
So,
as you go ahead.
yeah, I mean, so my journey has always been just trying more and more things to get healthier and to build that health from the inside. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have a strong foundation of health, then you can't get healthy. If you're just trying to, like, if you're treating your symptoms, you're coming from the outside in, like, oh,
Yes.
this symptom is bad, let's get rid of that. But if you're treating your actual health, then you're building that from the inside and using the symptoms more as
Mm-hmm.
messages. So, so I've just kept doing that my whole life, really, and that took me through getting a degree in chiropractic and an education and lots of other things. But and then I just have to keep evolving. You know, I had a hands-on practice for many, many years, but then COVID happened, and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't help people
Yes.
with my hands anymore. And I didn't know how long that was going to last. So that's when I got more into helping people virtually, and just more teaching them how to use plant medicine, and then got the functional bloodwork certification so that I can really dive deep into people's data. Like, so many people who are chronically ill, myself included, and have autoimmune disorders have totally normal blood work when their MDs read
Yes.
it. But when I read
Yes.
it, yeah, right?
Yes.
And that's what I get from so many people, is that they've been told everything's
I
normal.
know I know the struggle. Yes, and then you
Yeah,
know intuitively like something ain't right. Something isn't right.
exactly. But then their MDs argue with them and tell them everything's fine, or it's just your anxiety. And they want to match up, like they may have a diagnosis, but
Mm.
that's really just to match it up with a medication. It doesn't help them. Like, if your diagnosis, no matter what it is, if it's fibromyalgia or multiple sclerosis or lupus or anything, if it's not helping you get better, then what's the use? So with the functional blood work, it's less about the actual numbers and more about the relationships between the numbers. And I can uncover so much
Hmm.
about what's causing people to feel crappy from those numbers. So it's been an interesting evolution the past few years to go from that full on, hands-on in-person practice to helping people while they're sitting on their couches, which is nice, because the other thing
Yes.
that I learned with being chronically ill is that you go to appointments and stuff all the time, and you spend so much time and money on
Hmm.
appointments and supplements and blah, 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 and get probably minimal results. I mean, that was my experience.
Exactly.
Even a couple years ago, after having had a chiropractic practice for many, many years, I was still like migraines, fibromyalgia, all of that constantly, digestive upset. I still wasn't well. And the past couple years, like really diving deeper into the plant
Hmm.
medicine and then doing the functional blood work stuff, that's what's gotten me finally feeling good enough to live my life how I want to live it. Because if you don't feel good enough to do that, then really, what's the point?
Yes. Yes. So it's interesting to hear about your evolution. And I guess, and you describe yourself as a holistic doctor. And I guess, can you tell us, like, because that also it can mean a lot of different things. Like, what do you, for you, like, what does being a holistic doctor mean to you?
Sure. Well, I have the doctorate, so there's that. Um, and the holistic piece,
Hmm.
though, um, so that is really looking at the body as a whole and looking at like
Mm.
symptoms as messages from your body, not as the problem, and always wanting to find the deeper root of what's going on, and looking at everything as connected. You know, one
Mm.
thing I get from so many people is like their MDs will tell them that their digestive upset isn't related to their headaches, or, you know, that's just one example, but that none of that is related. They're all separate pieces.
Yes.
And so rather than being a specialist in that I look at ear, nose, and throat, or I look at digestion, like I'm looking at the connections between it all so that I can see the body in a really whole way,
Oh, I
because
love that.
everything affects everything else. Like there's no separation
Yes.
between your gut
Yes.
and your brain, or your gut and your muscles, or your brain and your muscles. Like it's all connected. And so making sure that I see everything from that connected piece, and not just the physical too, because then there's the whole part about, you know, I've been to clairvoyant school too. And so that's a very spiritual piece for
Yes.
me. And so looking at the physical
Yes.
from that spiritual place, but then also seeing the emotional and the social and all of those pieces that work together to create the whole person, because it's not just about your body and like your joint pain or whatever it might
Yes.
be. You know, your joint pain could be related to some emotional
Yes.
upset that you had when you were 12 or something. And so looking at it from an intuitive,
Absolutely.
yeah, right, from an intuitive point of view, and looking at the
Yes.
whole system together rather than, you know, this part hurts, so let's fix that. Well, why does it hurt? So I'm always looking for the why.
Yes. Oh, I love it. And and that, like, your approach is something that is, it's just like we have to get back to that in medicine, instead of the symptoms based, like just focusing on different regions, symptoms, and really not looking at the whole picture. Um, and I guess I want to ask, um, for you, you're doing a lot of things, right? But I guess I want to get a sense of what's your vision? What are you hoping happens as your practice has morphed over time? Um, and yeah, what are you hoping that it it becomes, or I guess what does the future look, or are you hoping for in the future, as
Ooh, I
far
love
as
this
the
question.
difference you're making as a healer?
Um, so my vision is that healthcare is not going to be a thing that you go get anymore. It's going to be something that
Mm,
you create
mm,
at home and that you have power over, because you live in your body 24/7. So you know it best. And we all are intuitive, whether you know it or not. But if you've ever had a gut feeling, that's your intuition talking. And if you've ever had, you know, I get this a lot with people who've been told they're
yeah,
wrong by their MDs, or gone in there and said that been told that everything's normal. They're like, but I knew something else was going on. Like, well, that's your intuition speaking.
yes,
So my vision is to empower people to have that faith in themselves, that they do know what's going on, and to have the tools to be able to address it. So I actually created an online course, so to give people those tools and that power, so that they can look at their medical records, look at their blood work, and see what's actually going on. And then
mm,
if they're still going to go to their MD,
yes,
then they can go in having that empowerment, so that they don't just get talked over and brushed aside, because that's just the worst, when you do all this
yes,
work to figure out what's going on with you and all these things to try to help yourself be better, and then you go to this appointment with this specialist or whatever, and he or she is like, oh, you're fine. When you know you're not. So so
yeah.
my
It's very dismissive.
mhm,
It's invalidating.
yeah. And you know, everyone I've ever worked with
So
has been chronically ill,
I
um, who
mhm.
has been chronically ill, they know so much about what is going on in their bodies, and they've done so much work. You know, they've done elimination diets, they've done supplements, they've done all of these things, they've done chiropractic, they've done yoga, they've done like you name it, they've done it. And then to be told that there's nothing wrong,
Mm-hmm.
like, come on. So really just putting the power into people's
Yeah.
hands to know what's going on and be able to see that and address it from home.
I love that. I love that. And for our listeners who want to start now, who want to start now, like, can you give them are there any tips or just anything that they can do now if they are interested in tapping into their intuition or like moving forward, or they have a chronic disease and want to move forward? Um, so we'll obviously provide links to your website and your social media handles so they can get in contact with you. But can you give any tips now for our listeners as far as like,
Sure.
tapping into their intuition?
Well, one is just to not dismiss your intuition. Like one of my favorite life-changing things that I tell people to do is take at least 10 minutes a day just for yourself. And a lot of the people that I work with are moms and business owners and all of that. So that's a hard thing to do. But take
Yes.
10 minutes a day to just sit with yourself or walk with yourself all alone, no phone, none of that, and just tap into what you need most that day or what your body's telling you that day. And also to, like, if you have a symptom going on, to look into the deep meaning of that symptom, because like the symptom is uncomfortable, yes,
Mm.
but it's a message from your body. So what is that actually meaning? And I did do a class on this. You can find it on my YouTube channel on symptoms and how to kind of dive deeper into that. So for time reasons, I won't do that right now, but the most
Okay.
important part is to tap into your inner knowing. And the other side of that for
Yes.
me is that we are all our own healers. Like, I don't consider myself a healer for anyone but myself, because
Yes.
we all have our own healing power deep inside of us. And, like, I created a human in my body. I didn't have to think about
Yes.
it. I wasn't thinking, oh, today I got to make her heart and make it perfect. And none of us moms do that. Our bodies know how to do it. I mean, we can create life. I
Yeah.
think we can heal our
Yes.
fibromyalgia or whatever autoimmune disorder. Like, you have all this healing power in you. And the medical system has probably told you that you don't have it, but you do. And so to
Yeah.
really believe that you do is such a huge leap in healing yourself. So,
Yes. Thoughts are powerful. Like,
are.
and if you can believe it, you can achieve it. But like, if you don't, then you won't. So I love that statement. And I guess, we're moving a little, unfortunately running a little low on time, but we want to ask if there's a question that you wish that I'd asked you. Are there any questions? Is there one question you wish I had asked, and how would you have answered that?
um, Jeez, let's see. I I'm not coming up with anything off the top of my head. I think you've covered it really nicely.
Okay, it's
Um,
okay. No worries, no worries. No worries. But so what we'll do, we want to make sure that our listeners, because I'm sure that this episode is definitely going to resonate with folks who have had some sort of a chronic disease or autoimmune immune disorder. I know that the medical system doesn't do a good job of helping people, and people will want to connect with you. And if they want to find you, what what can they do? Like, how do you want to hear from them?
so my website is drelizabethdavidson.com. Dr. Elizabeth with a Z,
Mm-hmm.
Davidson the David and then the Son.com. And
Yes.
I also use that, Dr. Elizabeth Davidson, for Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all of those things. But all of those links are on my website. And the cool thing on my website, too, is that you can press this little button that says schedule a discovery call with Dr. Elizabeth. This is my free consult. And it's just to kind of get a sense of what's going on with you and see if we're a good fit for me to help you. So you can schedule that. And it's simple. It takes you to Calendly, where you just press a button. So that's probably the easiest way to get in touch. And yeah, that would be good.
Oh yeah. So and we'll definitely be promoting your social media handles and your website. And we would like to thank you, Dr. Elizabeth Davidson, for being on the show. Any last words for our audience?
Just trust yourself. And there's always hope. And there's no limit to how healthy we can be. Our bodies are always doing the best they can to get us through the day with the information that they have. And they're always trying to heal. And when you get better information in there, you get better healing. And so I would love to help you get better information. And if something doesn't feel right to you, like I'm thinking particularly any sort of diagnosis or something a doctor tells you, if it doesn't feel right at all, if you get that twinge of unease, get another opinion. And I know I'm happy to give another opinion. I'm sure you, Dr. Elizabeth, are happy to give another opinion. But get another opinion. What can it hurt? It can only help, I think.
Yes. Exactly. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. And we are very grateful. I think you are doing amazing work, and you are changing the field, and I love it. Changing the field for the better. Yes.
And we are changing the field, and the more people that we can have changing this field, the better, right?
Exactly. So many blessings to you, and we are excited to see what comes next.
Yes, for sure.
Hey, friends. Yes. So wasn't that an awesome interview? With that, you know what? It's time for our next segment. Yes, time for our soul power statement for the week. And for this week, our soul power statement is, I have faith in me. The tools to address every experience are right in me. And this brings to mind a quote from Roy T. Bennett. And it's something it sounds something like this, like, don't let others tell you what you can't do. Don't let the limitations of others limit your vision. If you can remove your self-doubt and believe in yourself, you can achieve what you never thought possible. All right, friends, come to the end of our time. We love to hear from you. So please comment and subscribe to our podcast. Write a review. Let us know how we're doing. If you're interested in being on the podcast, on having your own intuitive reading, send us a message. Send us a message. Write a comment. We are always looking to connect with you, and connect with us. Go to www.soulinyou.com And we will get right back to you. And finally, if no one has told you this today, I will. Thank you for being authentically you. The soul in me honors the soul in you. Disclaimer: this podcast is for spiritual and or entertainment purposes and is not a substitute for medical diagnosis, healthcare treatment, or professional advice. Each person is so unique, so please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.